Initiate Cowrat Podcast.
You were just there. You start.
Yeah, so my wife and I were just there for our 22nd anniversary. So we went to Grand Marais. We went and saw some stuff that we'd never seen. We haven't been there a lot. I think you've been there many more times than we have. We went to Palisade Head. That's 300-foot straight drop down from a cliff down to Lake Superior. I think it's 300-ish. Either way,
I'll look it up.
For people like me, it was a little hard to breathe when I got
It's a lot.
several feet from the edge.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. I was never brave enough to get to where my eyes were over the edge of the cliff. I couldn't get that close.
Did you start to feel the vacuum pulling you over the edge? That's usually what happens to me.
Even when we weren't there anymore, just the thought of being on the edge would make me flinch and have to catch my breath.
Oh, that's fear there, feasting on you. But I know the concept.
But it was really cool, especially when it's windy. It's like, is that wind going to just knock me down? I'm not getting anywhere. I didn't put myself close enough to the edge where if I fell, it would be dangerous. I don't know if Linda got a little closer to the edge than me. I don't remember. I took a picture from further away. I don't know if you saw that. I think you did.
I think I saw it.
And it looks like she's about to slide off the edge in the picture.
Yeah. You could see the vortex starting to form. This makes me feel like that line from What About Bob where it's like, I forget what they say. We're going to go do something. And he goes, it makes my lips feel numb. It's like just thinking about being at the edge makes you feel like you're going to fall over.
Right.
Yeah, its high point is over 300 feet above the level of the lake. So I assume that's probably the part that antenna tower rests on. Is the very
and
peak
that's
of it.
Further back from the edge.
Right.
But
it's plenty high anyway, and it's straight down. And there's sharp rocks below.
If you slipped, you wouldn't hit anything until you hit the bottom. It's not like a slight hill or anything.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me, we went to, I don't remember, 4 or 5 years ago to North Dakota it's one of the presidents, Theodore Roosevelt State Park. And they have Badlands there. So there's super high hills and super low valleys, but you could pretty much just walk down and back up. Sometimes it was a struggle, but there's nothing like a straight drop off.
Right.
Palisade.
Yeah.
And my kids, when we went to the Theodore Roosevelt Park, they would just run down the hill and we're like, hey, careful. Well, okay, I guess it's not that dangerous.
Yeah.
But my wife said that she would not take our boys to Palisade. Her and I would probably both die of a heart attack just watching them run around.
Yeah. And they've done that.
But then it's funny, my oldest son, he saw the picture of her at the top of the cliff, and he's like, oh my gosh, I would never get that close. Like, okay, maybe we would take him. But that was cool. We went, so Grand Marais, the whole town, kind of one edge of the town, it borders the lake. It's right on the lake, on Lake Superior. And they have a little, what do you call that when there's
harbor?
Harbor, yes. Yeah, they have a harbor, so they have these
breakwaters.
Yeah, these man-built walls that go out, breakwaters. We went 3-ish years ago with all the kids, and we went to Grand Marais for a couple of nights. And we walked out on the breakwaters all the way. There's these gigantic rocks you can climb over to get out there. That was fun. You have to drive all the way to the other end of the town to get to the other wall. So we hadn't done that last time. So Ellen and I did that, and you go out on the man-made wall that's just a cement wall out to the little tiny lighthouse. And then you could also go the other way, and you go through these woods and out on this little peninsula. That was really cool. You're just surrounded by the crashing waves, and you could walk right down to. And I would always look like, okay, that's wet. That means if you stand here, you're going to get wet at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
Linda told me, so this is a theme when her and I go away for the weekend or our anniversary trip. At least one of the days I sleep in and she gets up before sunrise because she wants sunrise pictures. And so she did that, and she told me that she was hiding in this little nook in the rocks, with her back up against, and just taking pictures. And then just all of a sudden she was completely splashed and doused with this giant wave.
Oh, no.
And she looked up, and there was another photographer standing there looking at her. He wasn't sure what to say or do, and she started laughing, and he started laughing.
Looks like she managed to keep my lens dry, so...
Yeah, right.
I'm good.
Oh, probably one of the biggest highlights, we were feeding a chipmunk, and it had no fear. That was pretty fun.
She did get some really crazy pictures.
Yeah.
Only the kind you get in that kind of situation. He's like right up.
Yeah, camera like an inch away from the face of
His cheeks are puffed out and almost hitting the lens. I mean,
Right.
Yeah, those are cool.
Our daughter just told us, hey, if you guys come visit in Colorado Springs, there's a park. She said that there's tons of friendly chipmunks there if we want to come and check out chipmunks. One thing that we did not foresee, we were there on a Thursday. It was kind of late in the year, kind of after the whole tourist season is not past the big hump in the tourist season, you know what I'm saying, not crowded. We stayed in a tent this year. A lot of times we'll do a cabin in northern Wisconsin, actually. But we stayed in a tent. We brought all the food, and we were cooking out like you do when you're camping in a tent outside the tent. We brought a little grill with us. But it was rainy and cold. We're like, you know what? Forget it. Let's just go find some place to have breakfast. Everywhere we went was either closed or the line out the door. Why was it so busy? What is going on?
Yeah.
So, and it's a small, Grand Marais is a small town, but it's a big tourist town. So, okay, well, let's head to out of town to our next site that we want to see. And on the way, we'll find a place for breakfast. We passed a place, some restaurant, and there were cars lined up on the road because the parking lot was full. Anyway, we finally found a place, but we had to eat in the car because there was no room in the dining room.
How about eats? Where all did you eat? I know you ate someplace. Tried to stop at the Anchor Bar in Superior, which I recommend, but
we got into Anchor Bar, and there was a sign that said "Seat yourself." And so we walked all the way to the back and left because every table was full. And that was really neat looking, though. The glimpse that I got, it feels like you're on some old pirate ship, like 400-year-old ship or something. And I don't know, it struck me as almost funny. When you first walk in the door in the Anchor Bar, immediately turn to the right, there's almost like this little separate room with a table.
Yeah, we sat there this last time.
Oh, okay. And it looks like, I'm sure it's kind of fake, but there's all these like old books on a old rickety bookshelf. And at the table were three guys. They seriously looked like 1800s fishermen to me. They had big white, one of them had a big white beard. I swear one of them had like an old sailor hat. And one guy but they all looked old timey. Like, and I'm like, are they part of the decoration? Or are they just hired to sit here? And
no.
If we talk to them, are they going to say, hey, me hearties?
We're paying customers. So you didn't get the opportunity to use the restroom, which is also very colorful.
No, we didn't.
It's cash only, but I saw it on Friends with Famous Dave on Facebook, and he happened to mention it one time several years ago. It's like, okay, we are going there then. And it is very good and very well priced. But anyway, but you guys ended up at, I forget the name of that place.
Well, so that was Anchor Bar is in Wisconsin.
Superior, yep.
We ended up going back to Duluth, and we just kind of randomly stopped at Pickwick, which I've never heard of. I don't know. It's like, there's a restaurant. Let's stop.
Yep.
It was a little more spendy. When they took us in and sat us down, we looked around. We're like, we hadn't seen the menu yet. We're like, okay, this is a spendy place. They had like chandeliers and there's this giant, view window looking right out on the lake. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Like Linda first mentioned it, she looked around and like, you're prepared to spend a lot. And the reason we stayed in a tent this year was we were trying not to spend so much money for this trip. So then we ended up at this high-priced restaurant. And so I'm looking at the menu. I'm like, what is the cheapest thing on here that I don't hate?
Yeah.
So we just got a burger and fries for... I don't know, $16 or something like that.
Man. Yep.
Yeah, I kind of wish Anchor Bar had an open table, but
and if it was cold enough, because they have patio seating too, right next to that little table you're talking about, immediately past that is a walkway that takes you out to the patio.
Oh, okay.
And there's several tables out there, but if it's cold, that's no fun either.
Oh, yeah, it was, I think it was a little on the chilly side.
The thing I was surprised about is we were up there 1 or 2 weeks before you were, and right down in the canal, there's that one boat. It's a restaurant that uses an old boat that's on stilts right against the boardwalk and stuff on the land side.
I see.
That's always open, and it was plastic wrapped shut already for the year. So I think maybe I don't want to say the hardcores, but the ones that really stick to the schedule, I'm thinking the season ends on Labor Day weekend because we were there the very following weekend, and it was obviously not open.
So actually, I had never been to Duluth or Lake Superior until I was a teenager. We never went when I was a kid. My parents never. So I went with my girlfriend at the time. Her mom took all of us and my girlfriend's siblings, and we all went up there just for the day. We got up at 5 a.m, drove up there and stayed until late. And my, honestly, first impression was it was just a bunch of gift shops. That's just what I thought it was.
Well, there are those.
I mean, we obviously saw the lake and whatever, and it was massive and giant. Something about the humongous rocks I just think is so cool. Climbing out on those big rocks. But we stopped at so many gift shops, and I'm thinking, is this what we came here for? I don't know.
So mom was driving the vehicle, so yes, she had her agenda.
Of course, yeah. I mean, it was cool. You always find the weird, fun, neat, crazy stuff at a weird gift shop. But anyway, that was most of my memory it's just a lot of gift shops up there. But I had no idea all kinds of the other stuff that are along the shore that you could see.
Yeah.
Until we finally went. The second time I went was, like I said, 5 years ago, something like that. My wife and I and all the kids, we went. And that time we camped we did a tent again, 2 nights right near Duluth, and then 2 nights in Grand Marais. And we, of course, drove all different places while we were there. We went all the way, when we were in Grand Marais, we went all the way to
Grand Portage.
Pigeon
Falls, the highest falls in Minnesota.
Yep, we saw those. Just for the fun of it, we crossed the border into Canada. Getting across the border was okay. Getting back, they were like, you just wanted to cross the border and come back? Really? We're like, yes, that sounds weird, but that we just wanted to say we've been to Canada. We didn't even do anything. We didn't see anything. We just drove for a few minutes and turned around. Somebody was like, oh, you should have gone to Thunder Bay. I'm like, okay, maybe we should have, whatever.
Sure you didn't pick up some drugs over there that you want to tell us about?
So when we went with the kids, we, of course, went and saw the lift bridge. We got to see a boat drive under it, or go under it, so we saw it go up. But we were standing there under it, and our oldest son realized that you could jump up and grab the bottom of the bridge and hang from it with your feet dangling.
Uh-huh.
And so he's hanging there, and the bridge starts to go up, and we're like, he's just hanging there. And all of a sudden, we hear this voice from some speaker say, do not hang on the bottom of the bridge. And we all freaked out, and he let go. It's like, well, I guess somebody's got a camera on us. And
yep. They have seen it all. We heard them go off when we were up there this last time. Heard them go off on, I don't remember exactly what they said, but somebody was doing something they weren't supposed to do as they were lifting the bridge, or trying to lift the bridge. But
so you cross the bridge and you go out on Minnesota Point. Is that what it's called?
Yep.
And so you drive and drive and drive and drive. I was like, I didn't realize how big that thing was, or how long it is to get to the end of the point.
Yeah.
But so we stopped at the beach. We didn't do swimming or anything, but there was a bunch of people on the beach, and we just got our lawn chairs and we just sat there for a while. And my daughter didn't bring any shorts with her, and it was a little warm, especially sitting there in the sun. So she said, I didn't bring any shorts. And I think she was 16 at the time. And so I Googled some clothing store. And of course, the only ones there that we could find, or at least close, were like
expensive
gift shop type things.
Yes. The Walmart's way up on top of the hill is up in Hermantown, which is the up on top of the hill part of Duluth that you don't see.
Oh, okay. It's not the tourist area.
All the commercial stuff's up there. The airport's up there. And
yeah. So, but again, I didn't want to drive 30 miles or whatever it would have been. So we just went to this close place, and we found something that she could buy. I came back, and all of a sudden, and then we walked back out on the beach, and I noticed there's all these dead logs just floating all over the place that I hadn't seen 30 minutes before when I was there, or 20, whatever. I'm like, what in the world? And I looked at Linda, where did all these logs come from? She says, you can thank your boys for that. They were collecting logs that were small enough that they could move. I mean, they were pretty massive, and just shoving them out into Lake Superior.
Oh, man.
Just because that's what boys do.
Because they were there.
Right. There were all these massive logs everywhere, these dead wood,
The whole thing started for us because we decided to go to the Duluth area for our honeymoon, an undisclosed amount of time ago. Decades ago.
Many decades ago.
Many months ago. I think the first time initially after our honeymoon trip that we were up there was our 10-year anniversary. And then we were up there 2 years right after that because Duluth has a sizable air show every year, partly because the Cirrus Aviation is based up there. And then there's also I can never remember, it's the 148th Fighter Wing, the F-16s based up there. So they have an air show every year. So we went to that one year, and that year we had just the 3 boys. The girls stayed at home. That's right. Anyway, so we did the air show. We did Split Rock Lighthouse. Some of the other times we've gone up there, the Grand Marais, that's an extra hike. So we did that just a couple of years ago for the first time. And so the idea there was stay there or near there and then go up to Grand Portage, take some pictures of Pigeon Falls and see that area and then just catch Duluth on our way back home, basically. So, yeah, we've stayed in Duluth many times. That's always the expensive part. It is a tourist trap. It is seriously expensive to stay there year-round. It just is.
That's why we did a tent, because that's the cheapest way to do it.
True story.
Do you guys normally stay like in a hotel or something? Or do you just go up for the day?
We've done a combo of things. The in-laws are about half the distance from Duluth as we are. Oh. So we've done a thing where we'll go to the in-laws, Friday night, and then we'll do a day trip on Saturday because we got a good chunk of the day to work with because it's just 2 hours to get over there. Mm-hmm. So we've done a couple of the grad shoots for our oldest and a couple of their kids, a couple of their cousins we did over in the Duluth area, doing it that way. Anchor Bar, once we found out about that, we've been there multiple times since. Mm-hmm. Famous Dave's, I'd like to hit Famous Dave's and up there, especially since we lost ours here in town in 2012. So when we go to Duluth, there's one there, so we'll go there often. They moved this year, so they had a location down on the waterfront up until last year. They looked at their pictures from last year, and we went there, and it was still downtown. Then this year, they went into a new building, new location up on top, up in Hermantown, but...
Probably cheaper for them up there. I don't know.
Probably. But so for the men and boys thing, the first year we went up there, so that was late October. And so we're down we went down Minnesota Point out there, out on the beach. Oh, wow. So I got footage of, our kids and your neighbors and all that stuff, running away from the waves and getting their boots wet. And, it was gold that weekend.
Like winter boots because it was cold.
Yeah, only they weren't wearing winter boots, so they soaked through. But then one year, Chris was up there for work, and he discovered Wisconsin Point, which is just on the other side of that. Yep. But you got to go all the way into Superior and actually out of town and hook way back to get to that. But it's cool. Yeah, I mean, the beach is similar to what it is on the Minnesota side, but there's also a canal over on that side. What we found out about that whole thing, because I got to wonder, and I thought, so how'd this work? I mean, the harbor is a good size, so it sort of makes sense that they have 2 entry points. There's one on the Superior side, one on the Duluth side. But this last time we popped for the Vista Fleet boat tour that takes you around inside the harbor, and of course they tell you a whole lot of history and a lot of different facts and stuff. And one of them they talk about is the race for the Minnesota side to cut the canal there, because that's not a natural canal. They had to cut that.
Really?
Yeah, and so, there's quite the drug deal story behind how that one happened. But that was quite interesting. I'll have to reference some history books sometime just to make sure the facts are as they presented them. But the other thing about that boat tour is that's about the only way to get a straight-on photo of the lift bridge from the lake side. Right. Because you can't get out in the lake any other way.
Unless you swim.
There's places on the shore. There's a hotel over there. If you go over there, you can get on the other side, so you're looking out through the canal straight. Mm-hmm. You can do that. I got a shot from that place one time. But so Gooseberry Falls, Palisade, Silver Bay. If you just watch as you're driving along 61 up there, there's about every couple miles, there's some little bay. Yep. You just pick one and stop. There was one that was a honor system, pay for parking, because there's a gravel parking area there to be able to park to go down to one of the bays down there. They're all over the place. Mm-hmm. But the coolest thing we saw was we were at Silver Bay one time, and I biffed it as a photographer, because when you photograph propeller-powered planes, you need to use shutter speed like 1/250th or something like that, because propellers blur just a little bit because of the speed they're rotating at. Mm-hmm. So you can tell they're rotating.
Oh, I see.
It's only noobs that shoot propeller planes at 1,000th of a second,
I'm such a noob, I don't even know what those numbers mean.
I was so paranoid about getting it stable that I forgot to drop the shutter speed, because this guy was coming in over the bay, So there's this rock. It's like a breakwater, but it's all just huge chunks of rock that go straight out from Silver Bay as part of the breakwater, and then the marina's inside there. And so I see this obviously redone. I can't remember if it was it's a World War II era float plane.
Oh, cool.
Come through. I don't think it was a Catalina. It's a single hull deal, not the 2 pontoon deal, but the single hull. But painted looked really nice. And so I'm clicking away on this thing, and I totally forgot to drop the shutter speed. Otherwise, that'd been a super cool photo. But catching it come over the marina, right over the water to land. Anyway, but the last couple of times we've gone there with the kids, they all go running out on those rocks all the way out. There's a little tiny, it's not an island, it's like at the end of the rocks, but you can kill hours up there because there's just so much natural stuff to see.
Yep. So this plane, you're saying if you got the wrong shutter speed, it looks like the propellers aren't spinning?
Right.
That's the problem?
They look stationary.
Right.
Which is, everybody knows a propeller has to be spinning for the thing to be flying. Right. So it just looks dorky.
Photoshop.
Yeah, it just looks dorky. Anybody calls it out, amateur. Amateur.
You know what? I guess we all do this to a certain extent. Like once you learn something, then all of a sudden you think you're smart.
It. Well, yeah.
You think you're smart. Oh, look at that guy. He doesn't know. Like, yeah, well, last week you didn't know either.
Exactly.
But so I guess this has happened to me. Somebody pointed out that when you take a picture with your cell phone, think about whether it's portrait or horizontal. Everybody seems to just do portrait no matter what they're photoing or videoing.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Don't get me started. No, stop the madness. I'm totally stunned by how many pictures, let alone videos. In fact, I don't know if you ever saw that. I drew that picture and posted on that's a stretch. Rough sketch of a TV in a vertical orientation and posted on Facebook about and then I showing a guy next to it holding his phone upright and the future of video.
Right.
And it's all Apple's, well, not just Apple, but the smartphone's fault because everybody mindlessly shoots everything with the camera, the phone straight up and down because that's how you hold it, normally.
Right. And there, like I said, there is portrait and there's landscape. Think about it. If you're taking a landscape picture, maybe turn the phone landscape.
Yeah. Wow. You wouldn't have to chase that guy nearly as fast if you had the phone turned sideways because you'd have a lot more. You could see a lot more of the image all at once. How about that? Okay, sorry. Now I'm getting. Sorry,
I didn't realize how you're more passionate than I am apparently. But yeah, when I see people doing it, I'm like, what?
It's to me that is a great illustration of how much of a sheep we are as far as we need somebody to follow.
Right.
I mean, if nobody showed you any different, we do pretty much whatever seems to be the most obvious path of least resistance in anything we do. And it's like, yes, you need a savior. Yes, you really do. We all really do.
Right.
Anyway, not you going to hell because you shoot video and portrait, Anyway. Yeah.
No, but your pictures look terrible.
Yes. I digress. We did find a pretty economical place to stay one time. We stayed there 2 years ago, maybe, either 2 or 3. It was a little ways out from 2 harbors, so it was kind of in the sticks. So you had to drive to get back to where you wanted to be at. But I mean, it was like a fifth the cost of most places. So that wasn't so bad. Always got to stop and walk out on the breakwater in 2 harbors, and there's the one in Grand Marais as well.
We've been to 2 harbors, but we've never, stopped and did anything there. I can't remember. Well, one time we went and we stayed with a friend just because he lived there and it was a place to stay.
Cool.
But we didn't do anything there at 2 harbors.
There's a taconite loading there.
Oh, okay.
And then there's a concrete breakwater that goes out with the small lighthouse like Grand Marais to market for the ships coming in. So we've actually seen quite a few ships come in to load there. One time, just 2 years ago, we got lucky and saw one. There's fog on the lake, so we got to watch the ship come out of the fog.
Mm-hmm. You got a lot of pictures, I'm sure.
A lot of pictures of that, yeah.
That reminds me, so when I was 2 harbors, the reason we were there, the Minnesota Homeschool Conference, there's a conference every year. We used to go to that a bunch. We haven't gone to it in a long time. We're just kind of got everything out of it we thought we wanted, but we went every year for a long time. And it always moves there's 3 cities in Minnesota that it meets in, and it rotates every year. Minneapolis or St. Paul, whatever, one of those. Rochester and Duluth. And that's actually why we discovered, Linda discovered Duluth when the homeschool conference was in Duluth. I had been there, like I said, but I kind of just forgot about it. So that kind of made us discover Duluth again or whatever with the homeschool conference. And some friends of ours who lived in Two Harbors, they don't live there anymore. They're on the East Coast somewhere now.
Darn.
I know. So when we went to Duluth for the homeschool conference, we said, hey, we're coming for the homeschool conference. Do you know of a place to stay? They're like, you should stay with us. I was like, it's kind of what we're getting at. So yeah, we stayed with them a couple nights. But again, I never knew there was anything to see in Two Harbors.
Well, there's a train that runs from Duluth to Two Harbors, so it ends in Two Harbors, but I've never looked at it really close because we haven't done it yet, but it's quite close to the lake. I think places it might be closer than the old Scenic 61, because when you leave Duluth, you give a choice right as you're coming out of town. It goes at the 4-lane, that's the freeway that's marked 61, but if you veer right, that's the 2-lane, and that takes you closer to the lake most of the time.
Well, I've got on that road a couple times.
And I think actually that's one of the things as you're coming up, there's little elevations you come up out of there, you cross the tracks right there to get on the 4-lane. Anyway, so that train runs daily, and I actually got kind of a cool picture of it I was downtown looking straight down toward the harbor, and the train was across the road. But so you can watch ships come in and load, and then there's a beach there, of course, like every place else. If you're a drinking person, I think it's Castle Danger is right near Two Harbors. It's a microbrew that's gotten pretty popular. Never been there myself. It's a serious, that whole thing, once you get to Two Harbors, 61 drops down to 2 lanes, and it's 2 lanes to the border. Most of the time we do the free attractions up there. The paying for the hotel is enough of a tax the way it is, but
Right.
So the Vista Fleet, we did that this year. That's the first time we've ever done that. And we thought, well, we've never done it. And I know we'll be able to get some pictures you can't get any other way. And it was a nice day. So I thought, well, we'll do that. Now it's like $30, I think, a piece. The other place, we've been there twice now, and probably won't go there again for quite some time, if ever again, but it was the Congdon Mansion, or Glen Sheen is what they call it.
Yeah.
Originally, it was run by the family. The year we got married, it was still owned by the family. So we toured it, and it's definitely changed since then. They've actually opened the attic and some other stuff. So the tour is different than it used to be, and now it's self-guided, but it's run by the U of M. It's their responsibility.
Oh, I see.
I don't remember if they make that part of their syllabus or something. I'm not sure what the exact arrangement is, but we went 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. That's worth seeing once. I mean, it's a mansion. It's huge, and then you try and envision living in this place in the late 1800s, early 1900s. There was probably not a house around for miles when they first built it.
Right.
Because it's down along the lakeshore, out of town. And now it's all swallowed up by town. But back then, that was unadulterated wilderness.
Right.
You can see there's all this brick exterior, and when you get in the attic, there's steel substructure underneath it that you can see.
Oh, wow.
To help sustain it. But it's worth seeing once, definitely.
Yeah, Linda and her mom went actually one year.
Okay.
And they did that. The Glen Sheen Mansion.
Yep.
They were up there for the homeschool conference. They said one thing I remember was, so they're getting the tour, and the tour guide's telling them stories about this and that and different things. And they were looking at one of the bathrooms or whatever, and they said that back when this thing was built, it was believed that women were too fragile to take showers. So men would take showers, but women would only take baths.
Oh, my goodness.
I don't know. If everybody believes it, then it's not weird, I guess. But it's weird to us. But they're saying like they thought the female body would get bruised and broken bones if they were stood under the water pressure of a shower.
Yeah, so speaking of the shower, so they had the water jets from 4 sides shower,
yes.
And then the huge, like the rain head at the top of this one was one of them. But yeah, just trying to imagine this place in the year it was built. And it's like you live there, but live there not in a sense that we think of these days. I mean, they like hardly ever leave there. I mean,
right.
Mr. Congdon was a businessman, so he traveled a lot. They even had a separate bedroom for when he came home late from a business trip. At night, when he got home, he stayed in this other bed. It's like, Wow, and I'm sorry, I just can't see that, but
Right.
okay.
That reminds me, we were watching the Netflix series The Crown. I don't know if you have any idea what it is or saw it. I really liked it. It was about Queen Elizabeth started when she's like a little girl and went through to when she became queen and then a bunch of stuff after that. But I just remember one of the scenes, they each had their own separate bedroom, like on the other end of a hallway. Like,
Yeah.
So, yeah. I guess rich people, they want whatever. They're married, but they want their own separate bedroom.
Yeah.
At least back then, anyway. Whatever.
Yeah. One thing it struck me, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's using the old noodle, was down in the kitchen. It's butlers and maids and wait staff and all that stuff. So there's a
Waiter.
they call it dumb waiter system to lift trays of food from, it was in the basement, to lift it up to the dining room.
Right, like a small elevator, basically.
Yeah. I noticed in the one underneath some shelves, there was this tubing that weaved back and forth, almost like what you'd see heat element in an oven, only even tighter and like an inch in diameter, that they passed hot water through to generate heat inside this cabinet. They'd set like the breads and stuff like in there to keep them warm wait until they brought everything up all at once. That's how you keep stuff warm without burning it. They had their own laundry thing there, including pressing. I mean, like you'd see at a commercial laundromat or Martinizing, that kind of thing. I mean, they had the forms you'd hang your suit over, and I don't know what all they do, steam them and whatever else. But anyway, it's quite the to-do, but also not cheap, but like I said, worth doing once.
I like that kind of like old technology stuff. Everything's just a computer, an electric motor now. But like seeing how they did stuff. I remember even as a kid in school, like grade school, I remember learning about how people had to carry water from the river up to the house or whatever, even like rich people. And I'm thinking like, build like a pipe. And I know that I'm thinking like, how would I do this just with this, a bucket and a pipe or whatever? And like, okay, you have a pulley that you put water in a bucket and somebody's pulling this pulley and it goes up and then it dumps water in a pipe so it can go downhill all the way to the house. Like, why couldn't they think of that? Come on. So, and there's a guy I saw on YouTube. He himself wasn't a YouTuber, but I think it was like a TV news thing that somebody put on YouTube. But this guy, his hobby is figuring out how to do stuff with ancient technology, like him just figuring out all on his own, how he would do it, like moving massive stones, like for Stonehenge or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I just thought that was so cool. Like one of them was, he had this, like I said, like this massive stone that he could climb up on top of and walk back and forth. It was so big. And I forget how he got it started, but he would get a fulcrum under the middle of it, and then he would start piling up smaller stones that he could pick up himself on one side to make it tip that way. And then he would put another fulcrum that was taller over on the side that was higher up, and then start moving the stones to the other end, and that would lift up the other end even higher, and then he'd put another fulcrum and just keep doing this over and over. And then, of course, you got to put stuff under the ends, but it takes forever. But he by himself could lift this thing, several feet up in the air, however high he could get it, I guess. But anyway, stuff like that I just think is so cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the side effects of the whole evolution thing. If you got to buy into evolution, then you buy into the fact that mankind was dumb and now we're smarter. It's like, it's actually the other way around. If you think about Adam, I always say this, it's like, you believe the Bible the way it's written, what it says, you have to therefore believe Adam knew a whole lot on day one. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it says that God walked with him and talked with him in the cool of the morning and all that, but he came, quote unquote, pre-programmed, knowing a whole lot of stuff. Yeah. A whole lot smarter than any of us are. Mm-hmm. And it's a totally different world when you look at it that way and go, no, aliens didn't build that.
I was going to say.
Your ancestors built that because they were cooler than we are.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say that same thing. Like, our ancestors were too dumb, so it must have been aliens, I guess. Like.
Okay, then. How you jump there? Well, because aliens the only thing that fits in my box. See, if God doesn't exist, then I can't go there.
Right.
Anyway, sorry. We're all observing the same facts after the fact. Mm-hmm. So Jay Cook State Park, of course, we usually at least stop through there quick and walk across the bridge before we continue to Duluth from there. That's very cool to see. And it's gotten wiped out a couple times. It was just a couple years ago. It got trashed when it flooded, took the thing out.
We went there with the kids when we went a few years ago.
We spent a fair bit of time there. Well, that's where we stayed in the cabin. They have cabins there.
Oh, okay.
That's quote-unquote cheap place to stay, but the problem is they're booked so many months in advance. Good luck with that.
Yeah, right.
They have a really nice bathroom and shower building nearby, and then there's outdoor, like you'd see at a state park, because it is a state park, toilets close to the cabins, too. So it's not super convenient and be hot in the summer because there's no AC, but there's heat in the winter or in the fall. I mean, they were very new when we went there with the men and boys the first time. Oh. They were quite new. I made a toaster out of a crock pot. No, I took the 3 older boys up there one year in like April, and I had the idea, if a crock pot fired up, I could just take my Pop-Tarts and just lean them up against the side, one of the oval-shaped ones, lean them up against the side and crank it up and put the lid on and leave them run for 15, 20 minutes. That should heat them up.
I heard on a different podcast that I listened to, they were talking about this phenomena or whatever, that as population of the world increases, and in many places, the average income, not just income, but disposable income, as disposable income for a lot of people is coming up. There are more people, and people can afford to travel more. Yet the places that exist where people want to go to, the number of those isn't increasing. Mm-hmm. Really, I mean, it is, I'm sure, but there's only one Yellowstone. There's only one Grand Canyon, and so just the number that people are visiting these places is just always growing. Yeah, and it's to the point where, like you were saying with this cabin, like good luck renting it. Getting in before someone else gets it, because.
But yeah, talking about the attendance. So we were in the Grand Canyon. So it was January 3rd, I think, this year, because I wanted to see it in the winter. But the attendance number for Grand Canyon, it's insane. They say it's about 5 million annually. And of course, there's peak months, which are like May to September, but just strictly divided by 365 days out of the year, that's over 13,000 per day. And which would explain why there are parking lot after parking lot after parking lot. And with good reason. And they've got elk. They just roam the park, kind of like the bison do out at Custer State Park. Mm-hmm. Then we actually saw a couple this time. They were fairly close by.
Oh, that was another thing. We went, when we were there just, a few weeks ago, we went on the Gunflint Trail.
Yes. That's the place to see wildlife, I think is what your wife was saying, that's what she had heard.
Yes. We didn't see any wildlife. I think we saw a chipmunk run across the road. It's not like there's some guarantee. Like the lady who she read an article online. This lady said all the places that the tourists don't know about, she was specifically looking for, not so popular places, just cool things. And this lady said you might drive on it 50 times before you see a moose. And we're like, moose? I didn't even know there were moose in the area. So we were like, please God, let us see a moose. That'd be cool. So we're driving along, and again, it was really cool, fall colors, kind of. Again, we didn't see any wildlife really, but we were looking in the trees. We were driving really slow. We had to pull off every time somebody came up behind us because we didn't want to drive fast on them. Yep. But we did find a couple cool lakes. Mm-hmm. This is, as you're driving on Gunflint Trail, you're getting further and further away from Lake Superior. It starts at Grand Marais. So we saw this sign, turn here for whatever lake. And we're like, oh, why not? We're just driving along. We're not going anywhere in particular. So we drove, and then it took forever to finally get to the lake. But that was really cool because it was like really wooded. The Gunflint Trail is out like a 2-lane highway, which we didn't realize. We thought it would be more like a gravel road or something. So this road on the way to whatever lake it was, that was really pretty fall colors. The trees were, right up next to the road. You could almost reach out and touch them as you're driving. Mm-hmm. I did kind of wonder, like, what if it was like a 1-lane gravel road? I'm like, hopefully nobody comes the other way. Yeah. So we finally got to this lake, and it was really cool because as far as we could see, there was no development on the shore, like a lot of lakes. It was all just trees and pine trees. And so we decided we want to remember this because a lot of times when we go kayaking or canoeing on a lake, we want to go like close to the shore and kind of go around the perimeter of the lake. That's what I like to do. But there's always private property and docks, and people feel like we're intruding if we go right up to the shore, But
so that made me think of the other thing I was going to mention was, so the beach down on Minnesota Point there, one of the times we were up there 3 years ago, we took our bag chairs and a Bluetooth speaker. Oh, yeah. And plopped them down just shy of the wet line on the sand. Yep. And just sat there. Kind of like you were talking about the moment with your wife about, okay, why can't I just stand here and just enjoy it, not worry about, what's the next cool thing we're going to do?
Right.
That's one of the places where we've done that. But there's all kinds of gulls out there. And so if they think you got any kind of food, you can have quite a party there which my wife did, of course. I couldn't help herself.
Of course.
And so I got tons of pictures of these gulls. And there's always one in the crowd. So that time, and then this year when we were up there, did the same thing for a little bit. There's always one in the crowd who's out, always chasing after every other one, chasing them away from any food that's dropped. And then half the time they don't go get it themselves anyway. It's like they're just the control freak, We're just the gossiper in town. You just got to be chasing everybody off.
Right. That reminds me, what do you call the chickens that are at the top of the pecking order? The impeccable ones.
The guy in the boat tour had a joke about the gulls that you don't really see an ocean around here anywhere, do you?
Right.
And he said, so I like to call them bay gulls.
What, put cream cheese on them?
Bagels.
Right. That has some level of humor to it.
He was pretty good. So I have become that Sunday driver dude. Again, on the theme of, which we'll wrap this up with that whole thought of, why we do these trips, especially with our wife. And especially when the kids are younger, if we can manage it somehow. We've done staycations before, too, where we farm the kids out and we stay home.
Right.
Because we're like, well, we want to have something more in common than just the children that we raise. Because as we found out, like I said before, last year hit me like a ton of bricks. Now what?
Right.
And so if you don't foster that relationship where it's just the two of you and you find things to do together, things that you like to do together, places you like to go, whatever it is that you like to do together, and keep practicing at that while you have kids at home so that when they leave, you don't feel like you're living with a stranger.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the things that I found that I like to do the last couple of years, and I don't have to confess, I don't just do it on Sunday, but I do stay situationally aware to stay out of the way of people who are actually trying to get someplace on the road that day.
Right.
But there's a couple specific stretches of road. I get on the freeway, yes, I'm gonna go my allotted speed. I go and set the cruise and away we go. But there's certain places where I'll be driving 50, 45,
right.
When it's a 55 or 60, because I know it doesn't slow time down, but it gives you longer to process what it is you're seeing and doing, because time really does feel like it goes faster and faster and faster. Mm-hmm. And the only way to combat it, seems like, is to try and slow it down.
Like literally
how you interact with it as
right,
it passes. Right. And if you're trying to see something, I'll just never forget, there's a couple times as a kid, there's one particular drive we went on that's not far from the farm where we grew up. Just one evening, this was just Mom, Dad, and I. We just went driving in this loop, and it was just cool. It wasn't that far from home, but it's on roads that you rarely ever drive on. Mm-hmm. And you see stuff like, oh, I didn't know that was over here. Oh, I didn't know that was out here. I'm sure I got some places like that in town I could show you, but just stuff like that becomes a way to kill an afternoon, and it's quite enjoyable. And usually you're going less than the speed limit while you're doing it.
Right, yeah. I heard that that's one benefit that the Amish have, that that they appreciate.
Yeah.
That
that's real.
I mean, and some of them, they'll use modern vehicles for work only because you got to earn money. It's got to be a certain level of efficiency. But anyway, a lot of times they just stick with their horse and buggy, and they don't get quite as caught up in this rush of everything moving faster and faster.
It really is doesn't serve us well in all instances, I would say. So if there's any lesson we can share from all this, is that, especially if you have multiple kids, to get away with your wife for at least an overnight, if not a couple overnights, at least once a year, and do stuff together that you enjoy doing, discover what you could enjoy doing, and ask yourself, what would we do with our time if we weren't raising our kids? Because that day will come. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine the sinking feeling it would be for some couples who find themselves living with a stranger we're still asking ourselves, okay, well, what all do we want to do then? What do we want to do with our time? Because we have more of it now than we did before. But that's actually not true, as Phil would point out. Everybody has 24 hours in a day. But what have we already stuffed our day with, and how much time does that leave and what we can do with it?
You have more disposable time.
Disposable income, disposable time. Oh, boy.